CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success.
I welcome everybody to the podcast portion of today's sessions. And so I've got with us here on the stage from CMMS Radio, Greg Christensen. Yeah, thank you, Greg, for coming and doing this. I met Greg, well, I saw him on LinkedIn, and I watched a few of his episodes, and I immediately said to myself, Greg and I are what's that? Maybe a little bit. But we were just very passionate about the same things, which are customer success, people first, cutting through the fluff, being real and transparent, and just being honest. And so with that being said, we brought Greg here, and he's been doing some episodes, and it's been fun, but we wanted to do one on stage and bring 3 people on stage and talk about their journey. So let me set the stage for you, pinch. We're not going to talk about products today. We're going to talk about the journey. We're going to talk about decisions that were made, how these individuals are getting there, how they're moving the needle, and the technology and tools that they're trying to use. So this is going to be a real fun discussion. I'm excited to have my most recent friend, Trent McJunkin, here. And then we've got Zach from, we weren't going to say business names, but we got Zach, who's local, new friend to me too, and another new friend, John. So I will let you guys intro yourselves a little bit more, and I'm so glad you guys are here. And thank you guys for being here today. Greg, it's all yours, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And I got to say, I'm really honored to be out here, and I want to run this like a typical CMMS radio episode. Pretty much no rules. We don't want to bash on anybody, but we want to get to the maintenance management in the middle. It's about the people and the process. Sorry about that cutout. So essentially what I want to do is jump in with each of you gentlemen and kind of talk about your journey and help everybody kind of get some insights around that, kind of like what Alex was saying. So first off, we're just going to jump right into it. I'm going to start with Trent McJunkin, and I've known Trent for a while, but he's got interesting perspectives on maintenance management, leadership, and I want to talk about when you're bringing in technology to your group. Can you share a little bit about the strategies you incorporate to get them excited about and to actually turn the corner on adoption of maintenance management, asset management strategy, as well as the technology itself?
Absolutely. I think it's really critical to start with, what do you want the CMMS or whatever this solution is to do? Put it all on a whiteboard, bring in your technicians, your people who are on the front line, and really get their feedback. Hey, what's a pain point with the current way we do business? You may be thinking at a very high level, I want it to communicate with finance, I want to manage my spares, but your technicians on the floor, the people who are doing the work every day, have this dream of how they want it to work too. And if you can bake all that in from the start, there's less bad days as you go through the implementation.
Now, you've been through this journey before in past lives, so to speak, and I think in this case, you're probably about a year into your more recent journey with the technology, and I'm curious to know, is it really possible in that amount of time to start to yield benefits and see opportunities for continued improvement, as well as start to track on metrics and get clues as to where you might be having problems with the asset management overall strategy?
Definitely. I think it all goes into who do you pick as that right partner, and helping them understand what are your pain points, what does this end goal look like, what's your vision, and say what is the most critical piece that needs to be implemented first, and what am I going to be looking for in a dashboard through my analytics, starting there and getting feedback from your team to say, hey, what does being successful look like to you as well as the stakeholders? What kind of information are you going to be looking for? And those things first.
Makes sense, and I want to kind of move it around, guys. So for you, John, when you hear this and you reflect on your journey, you have a different kind of a journey when it comes to the technology, because you're kind of dealing with two pieces of technology. We don't have to talk about which ones, but you almost have to manage dual cultures. And I'm wondering, what approach do you take when it comes to the blending of those cultures as you move forward to kind of transition from one to the other? And I'd kind of like to hear what challenges you had and how you're overcoming them, not that you have done that yet.
Sure, yeah, so it's challenges that we do have. they're current. So working through two different systems, and cultures are similar, but they're not the same. Focuses are similar, but not the same. Methods are similar and not the same. And so first is uncovering those differences. And then I like what Trent said, is understanding what our objectives are. For us, we're highly focused on efficiencies for operations and looking for ways that we can improve how we do maintenance, the efficiency of that maintenance, the data that we're collecting, building a story towards the future of asset management at our company.
So when you're talking about that, and you mentioned efficiencies, because I think for all of us, we really want to find, secure, and get on that path to efficiency. But one thing that's really important to have that is effectiveness. So in maintenance management, asset management, everything that's connected to it, it's critically important that we're first effective before we become efficient. Otherwise, there's a risk of creating efficiencies against bad processes, right? Do you encounter any of that, or do you feel like, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but kind of, do you feel like you have that strong foundation of effective people and process already, and it's just a matter of leveraging the technology, or is there some other way you would describe it?
Yeah, one of the neat things about our process of moving from, especially from paper into an EAM system, is that we have an opportunity to review our procedures. And we ask ourselves often, is this the right thing to be doing? Is it the right way to collect data? Is it still the right thing? Of course, paper has limitations that we don't face in an electronic system. And so we've found ways where we can improve. Today we've talked about dynamic checklists and things like that, where we've improved our process because of technology. And so I think sometimes those things go together, where we're combining that review when we're moving into the system. And sometimes we keep it simple. The system looks like paper for a while we do change management, and then we're able to take it to the next step and improve that process.
Great, and we knew we were going to hear about change management, and that's a common theme throughout everything that we do. It doesn't matter what part of that process you're in, it's going to come up again and again and again. So Zach, I want to switch this to you, because you are currently kind of in the early stages of your journey, but it doesn't mean you don't understand these things. And I want to get a little insight from you on what it's like to bring in a solution without naming any names, but how did you get the buy-in from your people, and has that happened already, or is that something you're in the middle of, from a change management perspective?
Yeah, great question, and a very interesting process to get to where we are today. The organization has had its current CMMS product for over 2.5 decades, with some of the early entries back in 1998, 99. And so I like that tripod that we all talk about, the people, processes, and technology. And this journey, we started back in 2018, 2019 to go through ERP implementation. And the puzzle piece that was identified was a CMMS solution, and what was that going to be? And we have finally got to that piece where we have actually selected that piece, and now we're trying to fit it into the puzzle. But that has been a journey. The first piece of that journey, though, was our human resource capital management solution. So we knew starting this journey that people were most important, right? So we had to take care of that and had to take care of that piece, and then move over to our core financials. Obviously, because most these solutions need to tie into that. Somebody showed earlier we had a chart at the bottom where financials were a part of that. So we had to get some of these other pieces in place to get there, so that the technology that we chose was going to be the right technology to fit with the other pieces of technology. And anyways, that journey, we then spent 6 to 8 months with another guide to help us get to the correct solution that was going to work best for us. And to do that, we had to get the buy-in from all the people that were going to do that. So from the facilities techs to the maintenance techs to the ground service people to all the people that were going to deal with that, even all the way up to the executive level, and sit in and look at that. We looked at 9 to 12 different solutions, pulled that down to 4, narrowed that down to 2, and selected our final result. And all that is great. So the technology will generally never fail the organization. It's the other people and the processes. And if you still don't get those things correct, and so I say that tripod is very important, because the third piece of it is the process, which is what I've talked about here. Is the process piece of that is what we're going through right now, is to make sure when we get into this newer solution, which we've chosen another person or another organization to help us, guide us through that, which is important. I mean, we're going through these journeys. I want somebody who knows all the pitfalls, right? So we want somebody to guide us, and I think that's good. The other side of that, when you choose that guide, and there are plenty here, when you choose whoever that is, you want to make sure that they're really going to kind of come in and be a coach as well. Right, a coach and a guide. A guide is going to be on the journey with you. A coach is going to be on the sidelines kind of telling you what to do. So you need both of those, and I think we've chosen the right person to get us there as well, the right company. So it is, I will say, it's been amazing being here. I don't mean to capitalize on it, but, I'm a newbie. I'm not, this isn't my scene, and this has been fantastic to be at this conference, to hear so much depth and breadth, especially of all the people that are here and have been entrenched into this for years, and hear just the stories at the tables and at lunch, and how far it goes. So it's been great. I am just at the tip of this thing and getting started on our journey. So it is going to be very interesting.
It's good stuff for me, and I don't know if anybody agrees, but when we all hear this kind of feedback about you going on this journey, and that you're willing to pull in partners that understand you, and you recognize that, and you feel confident that they're going to add value. I think everyone here and anyone, when they hear that, they want to participate at least with giving some form of their own guidance. They want to encourage you, and they don't have to be the ones doing the business with you. And that's kind of how the overall maintenance, asset management, and on like this space works. A lot of problem solvers, they want to learn from one another, and they will watch your project in admiration. They don't want you to fail. They really don't. And we know that even when you get dialed in, as a result of the technology layered on top of the people in the process, you're going to have moments where that starts to fatigue or change. Somebody might leave the organization. Sometimes we lose our champions, and I think all of us are really here for that. We want opportunities to help you, but we also want to root for you if we're not the one doing it for you. So I want to switch it to a little part of what you were saying earlier. When you went through that process of making a selection, I'm always kind of interested in understanding what made the difference as you whittled down from 12 to 9 to 5 to 2. Was it something about those individuals you worked with actually having a better ability to understand you and understand your problem? And two-parter here, were the other ones a little more interested in selling you something?
Yeah, great question. And as we went through the process, there were multiple players on the scene, and some thought that they were, I would say majority were there to sell a product, were there to sell a technology, a software, a solution. And that's great. And I would say that out of the 9 that we saw, 7 to 8 of them could probably fill the need, right? But it's not the software most of the time. While there are other features and benefits to software solutions, this really did come down to the fact that they came in and understood the people and their desires And we went through and had a pretty extensive checklist of things that had to have. These are must-haves, like to haves, want to see in the future, and made sure that we sent that out to make sure that before you could come to the table, you had to meet our must. You know, the solution has to have these must-haves. And as I started out, we have, over 2 decades of data in a solution. And it is critical, absolutely critical for us to move that data forward in some way, shape, or form. And most of them just couldn't wrap their minds around that. And so it was very difficult for us to get to that point. We had a partner come in and said we could do that, showed it to us. It was critical that we had that. We said, look, you've got to be able to give us the confidence that you can do that, and they did.
I like that because, it's always going to come down to that, whether we really understand the people that we're serving, the people that we're trying to raise up, because in the end, we all know there's something that we have to do, right? It's about throughput, it's about strong facilities operations, or both. So I want to kick it back over to Trent, because I've got a question about your scenario when it comes to not just, manufacturing operations, but also facilities, because you have strong expertise in both. And I think often we don't see that. Sometimes we see people in charge of one thing versus the other. So if you could kind of give us a little bit of coloring around that, how you're applying essentially maintenance and reliability best practices in a facility-centric aspect of the facility. Does that make sense? I kind of said facility too much.
That's a great question. I think with my core being in manufacturing, I think in systems and processes. So you've heard a bad system beats a good person every day. You can apply that into the world of facilities, whether you have an office building or anything like that. The name of the game in facilities is customer service. If you take that back to manufacturing, operations is your customer. So there's 2 sides of the same coin, really, but you can drive lean efficiency through a solid CMMS by asking those questions, and it makes you think about the more holistic approach as to, I want this to make sure I can maintain my equipment and have optimum uptime. Well, if you think of it, how will finance perceive this solution? How will facilities perceive this solution? How can this help human resources with, here's my utilization and here's my number of work orders I need to complete. I need more people. Look at it from the big picture.
I like that because we're always talking about this concept of building a case, so I'm going to switch it over, and this will go to John. When we hear all these stories about asset management, maintenance management, all the related, how do we make a case if we're in the maintenance department and we want to get approval from leadership to actually get this new tool, because it's a tool, and they don't see it. They see it as, cost prohibitive for some reason or another. I want to kind of talk a little bit about that for you, John. Now, I know you already had a solution and then you're trying to switch over to another one, all those things, but have you encountered scenarios where you need to make a better case for leadership to get their support and buy-in for the spend to invest in maintenance and asset management operations? Can you tell us a little bit about how you've made that case, or maybe even some of the challenges you've seen that you just can't get through?
Yeah, so this is something that you didn't know about me, but I didn't have to make a financial case. And I was really fortunate in that at our company. My journey with EAM started whenever I was in operations leadership, and our COO came out to visit, and she asked me a question: what tool do you not have that you need? I didn't know anything about asset management. I knew that the tool that we had wasn't very good. And so I described to her what I thought that we needed, and then about 2 years later, I got a phone call from her asking me to be a part of this new team to stand up an enterprise asset management system. And so through that, we kind of developed what the needs were of the organization. Those were agreed upon, and it was really an easy sell, right up to the point where we had to write a check.
I'm curious, now, did she have a lot of, so to get that financial approval, was she directly plugged in or had experience herself and awareness about the critical nature of having asset management solutions in place to help you do the great work you already do and do it better and better and better? Or was there some other reason she was just right there to support you?
Yeah, so highly regulated industry, a lot of compliance. And so our previous system and Microsoft Excel managed that to a certain degree, but it wasn't as successful as we would have liked to been. And so putting that story together with improving our compliance, but then the capabilities that extended beyond a CMS into an EAM, I think that is really what kind of pushed us over that hump and gave us enough of that financial backing in order to be able to proceed with this project.
I like it because, you know, all of us would really like that to be kind of where we start when we go in and on these projects and on these engagements where somebody already knows and believes in the need. And I want to kick it back over to you, Zach. With your scenario, did you have any resistance from leadership, or did you have to spend a lot of time building a case to, you know, say, hey, we really need this tool to kind of level up, to really start understanding where we're at? I know you already had some data, but I want to talk about that part a lot because I think it's a common barrier to entry, but it's so solvable. I just want to always talk about how was it solved. It might help somebody.
Right. Yeah. We since it was labeled as a piece of technology in the beginning of that journey in 2018, 2019, it was there. With not a great understanding of what the financial spend and outcome was going to be. So I did have to put together a presentation. I had to bring that to the board and get board approval. It was above what we were where we were at, so had to ask for additional funds and got those funds approved. But it was because just it related to the people's buy-in. So it wasn't Zach coming to the board and saying, this is what I think that you need to put into place because I said so. It was, here's a bunch of people behind me who work for this organization, who've put decades of their own time, blood, sweat, and tears into this company, who have run this current solution to its end, right? I mean, this thing is, hopefully this may get, in today it's 2006. Nothing updated since that time, so we're running on legacy solution, and I think somebody said earlier, we ran failure, or we've run it to capacity, and so that's the end of that journey, and so to tell the board, hey, we've run a solution failure, and to make this organization better, right? We've got to then look at those processes, move that to the next step, and to get their buy-in was really critical. It was really key. So unanimous vote against the board. We see the need, we see the better outcome. We see that we'll be able to put this in place, and we also wasn't just, hey, I think you need this, and this is how much it's going to cost. This is going to be better for us overall. So again, it worked out well.
Good. And, we're not just here to sing Kumbaya and, here I was successful. I want to get it back over to Trent here. And I want to talk about some of the horror stories you've experienced in your career where you couldn't get through that barrier, or anything else that you would want to share when it comes to the concept of asset management and where you had struggles or difficulties with the team buy-in. Is there anything you could comfortably share that was kind of not going well and maybe you couldn't fix it?
Definitely. So I have been, in my past, I was saddled with a brand new, it will work forever CMMS that one guy initiated. With zero input from the organization, and it was rolled out to us as a team, and this is the forever solution, deal with it. And that lasted about 6 months, and then we went back to the old way of doing things. So I think that kind of attributes to the involvement piece. Also, it's a battle that we're all going to run into. We've always done it this way, or we've always used this solution, whether it's effective or not. It's the security blanket. It might be a bad one, but it's what I know. So fighting those battles is always something.
Yeah, and you were reminding me of something. I was talking about it earlier today. It keeps popping into my head. So let's get this one back over to John. And each one of you are going to kind of attack this question any way you want to. There's a concept in asset management, maintenance programs that you want to actually achieve a program that is boring. And I think what that means, because I'm not here to give you the answers, is if you're doing it really, really well, not much is going to happen other than walking around, checking things out, keeping an eye on things, a little maintenance here, a little maintenance there, kind of pie in the sky, right, everybody? So what do you think about that concept? And am I getting it right, or is there something more to it?
Yeah, one of the things that we talk about a lot is taking the load off of our technicians where they carry around a lot of I need to remembers. I need to remember to do that tomorrow. I need to remember to check back on this device in a couple of weeks. I need to remember how to fill this out or what data to enter. I need to remember to send an email. And we can take a lot of that load off and let them focus on the task at hand. We can take focus off of procedure, and we can put focus on the task. This is how I need to do it in order to ensure that I'm maintaining my devices right. It really allows a lot of time for our technicians to think creatively and solve problems that we can't from our position because we've taken that load off of them mentally. And so our system does look sort of boring. And I think that there's a lot of pride in that. We work really hard to make it easy. It's apparent. It doesn't take a lot of learning. When you look at a checklist or a task, it's pretty obvious what needs to be done. In the back end, we do a lot of work to ensure that we're compliant and we're protecting that technician from an audit trap that you might see in a spreadsheet or legacy system. So yeah, I think targeting for boring is a really good thing.
I like it. So Zach, for you, now, again, I know you're kind of relaunching, you're moving data, you're early in that process, but generally speaking, have you heard of that concept of maintenance programs that are built with the intention of being boring? And if so, what do you think about that? Do you think that really is the goal? And is there anything that you would add that somebody might be missing?
Yeah, well, I would like to just go back at least to the what Trent had mentioned earlier, and I do think that we're all on this different journey, right? So I think as we go through this and you bring more people into it, that we're not all on the same journey as we're going through this, either implementation or we're all looking at newer solutions, or some of us want the large language models to help us figure out how to make that automated process work. And so I think when you come back to this, the system being boring is, especially for the maintenance management piece, so is the task working? Is all the preventative maintenance or proactive maintenance set up, and are we to this euphoric state that everything is just running? I think the next state of that, though, is where do we get with AI, chatbots, large language models, so that we can garner more information from the solution or from the CMMS solution, so that what is the next piece, right? So if it's boring today, how do we garner more information from that? Or, maybe we have so many assets or so many items in there, so much stuff in that. I mean, we got two decades, of data in a solution. And how do we, if it's boring because we're just not doing the work, or we are and things are working, and this is, I'd like to shout out awards that we have. This is, we're doing the best of that. So, but again, I think that you have to move to that next level, and whatever the solution is grow with it, right? So boring is good if things are all well, but generally speaking, we live in a world where things are broken more often than we would care for them to be.
It makes sense. Next, I'm going to go to Trent, but I want to talk about something you just mentioned, and you can jump in on this when I talk about it. and skip the last question if you want to. You mentioned AI, large language learning, you know, the programmatic aspects of what AI really is, as opposed to bright, shiny stuff that's a magic silver bullet that just creates an easy button or set it and forget it. That's not what that is. And I think you're right that that's the next level. And if we have boring maintenance programs, it's because it's effective and likely efficient. But on that AI thing, it's critically important that there's the right context, it's valuable information, it's not just capturing data and pushing data around that's built on mythology or the wrong practices. You know, Jerome gave a presentation just before this, and he would understand a lot of that, because that's where a lot of the industry as a whole is making lots of missteps, and there's unsuspecting customers out there. So I just wanted to kind of shout that on. I'm kind of known for, like, I don't know, slow down on that kind of stuff. So with that, Trent, what do you think about this idea of, we've got a boring maintenance program because it's working well. We can kind of do our maintenance and we don't have a bunch of firefights that we got to step up to every day. We're not really playing catch up all the time. Now we want to take this good information about how we're moving so well, and AI, you know, large language learning models, all that can dig in and help us do that. Where do you see that for yourself and or for the industry?
So I think nothing is going to beat strong fundamentals. I don't think you get to a boring maintenance program without being strong in fundamentals. You can't buy that off the shelf. You have to have the behaviors and the skills built in. And once you get there, I think you can really utilize things like AI. You know, the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. And if you're a facilities leader, a maintenance leader, an asset manager, you can use these systems to tell a story and gain some leverage within your organizations. And I think that's where the industry as a whole is beginning to head. We can say, all right, this pump has had issues for the last 2 months, and we start to trend that. And we can create an asset management plan for that pump or whatever the asset is.
Now, is this thing working? There you go. I had it down here. As you're looking at that kind of bigger picture, we've got our big picture vision for what we're going to do with our organization, maintenance, asset management, and then there are these times we have to focus on what's happening right now. Do you also think that when it comes to those basic elements, and we're talking about the adoption, where will we go with this virtual kind of reality stuff that everybody's been talking about lately? I don't know if you've heard about that, but now we've got the data, we're using our AI, and now you can start to kind of see things. Have you looked into any of that? And I want to go down the line on that.
Definitely. So I've seen, and I've actually done this in a previous role, where say you have a labor-intensive PM that only Greg knows how to do, and Greg's going to go on a cruise whenever we need to do this PM. Why don't you go film that PM step by step, and then you have some VR that you can implement into this annual PM, or you have this tribal knowledge that's walking out your doors right now. How do you capture that tribal knowledge? A camera is a really good way to do that, step by step. And a lot of times, you probably have less secret keepers than you realize. A lot of these people want to know that they're doing a good job. They want to feel value added. So having them and engaging them and empowering them to make an impact to the business by saying, hey, Greg taught me how to rebuild this pump. Even 10 years after Greg's moved on, is going to be a big satisfier for them.
I like that, and I've seen some technologies around that. So Zach, have you seen or are you aware of something as it relates to what Trent was talking about, where some of this kind of virtual reality or video capture, documentation, tribal knowledge is making an impact for you, or that you intend to someday bring that into your asset management program?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting. We have a lot of cameras. We use a lot of camera analytics at our organization, and we also are looking, because a lot of the pieces that we need to work on, that they're not normally in a state where somebody can go do something on them. And so to have an opportunity to train somebody else, I love that, secret keeper. I love that. So I'm going to use that again instead of just tribal knowledge, secret keepers. So these secret keepers want to keep that information. But, we really do need to transfer that or put together a product. So a lot of VR technology out there to be able to take that and have that person be able to learn how to work on that equipment without actually having to be on the equipment, because they can't be there, right? So the time where Trent and I may need to go work on that, he's off on vacation, the equipment is down, we've scheduled maintenance for it down, and so that's the only opportunity to work on that for this year. And, sorry you were gone, so, but in the future, there is opportunities for us to take that, move that into a training opportunity, and then have that available so that now when I want to be gone and I don't have to schedule my time, Trent can work on that. So there are opportunities for us to look at that, and we're looking at it, I would say, fairly heavily. So adoption in that would be in the next couple of years.
Nice. And John, what do you think about that?
I think it sounds like a good idea. It's candidly, it's not something that we've put a lot of effort into just yet, but I love the idea of technicians being able to teach other technicians, having a video reference for a new employee to the company. How do I do this? How do I do this effectively and efficiently? I think that's really neat. For us, thinking a little bit of a different line, really put more effort and thought into the laser scanning. And I don't know exactly how that plays in just yet to the VR side, but at least sitting at a desk where I can measure and take readings from a laser scan and plan for new construction, look for potential obstacles, those types of things are pretty exciting for us.
Yeah, I think, I will say, without calling out any names, we've all seen it while we're out here at this conference, that we've got some of that technology here now. And people can not only put their eyes on that, it's not that it hasn't been around, but some companies are actually doing it in a way that actually lands really well. It actually does what you need. You can have these things like robots or the drones flying around to map things out, give you those laser readings potentially, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about. And I think those are fascinating technologies that we can incorporate, but we all probably agree, maybe everybody in this room, that we are going to have to come back to those basics. You got to have that fundamental excellence. It's going to always come down to the people. I mean, maybe in 100 years it won't be that, but in the near term, we're not going to get rid of the people. You got to have those sound fundamentals. You got to have that process moving along, and then you start to get clues from your EAM, from whatever technology you're using, to find opportunities for improvement. It's really, whether it's facilities or manufacturing, because I think this applies to just about everything, the concepts of reliability are all about availability so that we can really never be down, but we know we're not going to eliminate downtime. We're going to reduce it, and we have to have better resources to attack it quickly, but more so recognize it as it's coming. We get those clues. I think that's the real value of the tool of an EAM, a CMMS. What can it tell me about where I am, where I'm going, and we still can't forget where we have been. I want to go through, and you'll start, John, and if you could just tell me one thing about asset management in general. There's no wrong answers here, that just excites you, that makes you feel proud of what you do and what your team does.
Yeah, I'll answer that and also piggyback onto your last comment about focusing on the boring things. So that foundation is pretty boring. It's pretty basic, and it's really, really important. And when we get that right, then the EAM system does sort of start to tell us what's next. And it's pretty neat when we see throughout the organization as a whole, they start to see the data that we're collecting, and it's a need that we don't know exists from our seat, right? But they start contacting us and, hey, I wonder if we could. And what if we use that data, or what if we got one more piece and we got the whole story? And so from an exciting standpoint, that's sort of the next level. And we're at a point in our implementation where we're just starting to see a lot of the fruits of that boring labor, getting the easy things right, getting the small things right. And it really quickly is snowballing into some very exciting things. At the conference this week, we're learning about new opportunities within EAM that we look back on the easy things that we've done well and we've done right, and we can see a clear path to that. And so I would encourage anybody starting a new implementation to make sure spend the time that you need to on the boring and the small things.
Great. What about you, Zach?
The thing that excites me about this journey is that, you see the buy-in from the people that are want to do it and their excitement. And I say that with a bit of trepidation because, 6 years ago when we started this, there was a wall. I mean, I don't want a new solution. This thing works. We don't want to put anything in. A lot of kicking and fighting to the point where those same people now see the advantage of a newer solution. And I do think that that's maybe what you said, once you get to that boring piece, because we have great processes. I mean, we've got people that have invested again themselves into getting this thing to where it is today. And then to be able to see, I think the next piece past that boring is, you don't know what you don't know until you get it all in. And I think that's where you get to the next level of that. And I think that's why AI is probably a better tool to help us get to that point, is we just don't know what we don't know. And so we're not doing anything about it. And so if we did, we might take action against that. And it might seem a little crazy, which I think is the journey that we're going to go through is going to be a lot of gnashing and clawing and excitement at one end, and somebody's upset at the other side. And so it's knowing that everybody is on the mountain at a different place. Not everybody is at the peak. There's a lot of people still in the valley. And so as we go through it, I think that just, what we don't know, and then what surprises us. When do we have those aha moments as we start to walk through? This is going to be just, I think, amazing.
I think it's good stuff, and I want to hear from Trent on this, and then we're going to kind of wind it down.
So I think the thing that excites me most about the current state where we're at with CMMS and EAM is the ability to empower everyone on your team. Everyone can get better with more access to the data. If you have an entry-level technician, you can have access to all the documentation, all the history, and their limited experience can give you fresh eyes to an old problem. Someone who's been in the field for 40 years, they have the same access to the same data. We make better decisions when we put the right people in the right seats, and solutions like this enable us to make those decisions.
Love that stuff. So with that, we're going to call it a wrap, and I want to thank you three gentlemen for being here with me on CMMS Radio live from Streamline Asset Management User Conference in Greenville, South Carolina.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.